it got to the point where I needed a drink in the morning to be normal. I think it's my brain really telling me, like it's almost trying to scare me. And it is scary now. So I was eating, sleeping, and working in the same room all day.
All right, hey guys, welcome back to the studio. Today we have the author of Lying Drunk, Tony Hicks. All right, welcome to the studio, Tony.
Thanks, Mike. Good to be here.
Yeah. I love this book, and we actually have a couple of people in common. The beautiful Christine Carlson, who's done an episode of my podcast, and Rennie Medlina. Yes, those good humans.
Rennie happens to be my cousin, yeah.
Yes, right. Keeping it in the family. Yes. So welcome to the inner circle, Tony.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and I noticed on your book, on the cover of your book, Christine actually has got a quote up there at the top. With unflinching humor and honesty, this is a must-read for anyone seeking to understand the real struggle of addiction. And ain't that the truth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's something that, has probably been with me. Well, I started, when I was 13 or 14.
Yeah.
And I realized that alcohol made me funnier and better looking and smarter and more confident. And I became the go-to guy among my friends at parties when it came to doing stupid things. And, my friends would introduce me to other people as the John Belushi of their group, which at the time I was like, oh, that's great. That's my identity. And now as a 58-year-old man with daughters, it's like, I don't know. Plus, John Belushi died at age 32 from freebasing. So not the greatest comparison once you get into your 50s.
Yeah, it's a long road, and I can relate. I had, I've grown up in that atmosphere, having two brothers older than myself, 5 years older than me. My brothers started experimenting at a very young age. I want to say, it's around the same age as you, 12 years old, 13 years old. And my brother, the oldest of the three of us, he was in rehab by the time he was 15 years old. So,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he was already headed down that road. I mean, my parents, really did their best with us. We didn't grow up in an atmosphere where our parents drank or any of those things. We grew up. Actually, he went to private school. Of the three of us, he went to private school all the way up till high school, and then went to mainstream high school. But then the other brother, they were only 10 months apart. My other brother, them being so close, they had the same friendship circle. So, I mean, that was what the environment was, So they were born in 71, I want to say. I was born in 77. 72 they were born. And then me 5 years behind, I had my own, I walked down my own path with it also. And, kind of the same thing, when you're a good time, everybody wants you around.
Yeah. Yeah. And the line starts to blur after a while. I've had the same friend group since I was in high school. And, well, I say that loosely because I've burned lots of bridges in adulthood. But, we were doing our thing, into our 20s and even our 30s. And, once we're in our 40s and everybody has wives and kids and you go to a party at one of these people's houses and you act like this, like, you're always acting with your friends, and suddenly it's not funny anymore, especially if they have wives.
Yeah.
Like throwing food and dropping to your knees and pretending to give your buddy a blowjob. It doesn't fly with wives so
Right.
much, especially if they have like work friends over
Right.
and stuff. Um, So I've burned a lot of bridges because I got to the point where it wasn't just a social thing, it wasn't just a fun thing. I was a nightly drinker through college and probably, I don't know, the first 10 or 12 years of my career. I'm a journalist. I was a newspaper journalist back in the 90s when we still had newsrooms and newspapers were still fully funded and everything like that. Um, but it got to the point probably by 2010 where I needed a drink in the morning to be normal. And, also by then, a lot of people were working from home, in my business especially, because nobody wanted to spend money on big buildings and big newsrooms. And so, probably like by 2012, I was working exclusively at home. And gosh, why not have a pop in the morning to wake up? And since you're at home all by yourself all day, if you want to drink all day, you can. And I did. Um, and then after a while, it becomes a physical thing. If you drink enough, your body wants it. And
Yeah.
when you don't get it, your body tells you. And I'm smart enough to know that the day of reckoning was coming at some point, but that was always in the future. So, and when it came hard. The last couple years at my job, I was a music critic, I was a columnist, and then I was a movie critic. Um, and I did a lot of good work when alcohol wasn't in the way. But my last couple years at my job, I was coasting on my previous good work, and they should have fired me. I didn't show up for assignments. I I interviewed, let's see, I interviewed Michael Moore in 2016. Went over to San Francisco. He was doing a a movie thing where he was, doing press for his latest film, and had a great interview with him. Recorded it, brought it back, and then I just didn't write it, and no one said anything to me. And I did the same thing. I interviewed Disney's. I think it was Disney's. See, I don't even know who I interviewed. I think it was Disney's CFO or COO. Anyway, I used to do travel stories as well, and I went to Disneyland with my family and got to interview the Disney honcho in Walt Disney's on the patio of Walt Disney's old apartment, which is above the fire station there in Main Street. And I'm a Disney freak, so I was like, oh wow, I'm in Walt Disney's backyard.
Yeah.
And I had a great interview with him. Talked to him for 20 minutes. Got him to say some stuff that was like, oh, this is going to be a great angle for a story. And it just again disappeared. I never wrote the story, and
Wow.
strangely, no one at my work called me on it. And I don't know again if it was just me coasting and they were sort of holding on and waiting for me to become me again. But nobody said anything. And it's funny, I was I was going through my phone a couple weeks ago, and I found the interviews, both for the Disney guy and for Michael Moore, that I never wrote about. So I was thinking I might transcribe those and put them on Substack 10 years after the fact with full
Yeah.
explanation as, oh, by the way, here's why I didn't publish this in 2016.
Yeah. Wow, that was 2016. Okay. That was the
Yeah.
year I started my business. That was the year I had like my awakening. Was around that time. I was leading up to it, and then I had a bunch of life circumstances all transpire at once in 2016, and that ultimately there was, a lot of circumstances surrounding alcohol that were involved in that, and that ultimately led me to take a step back and reevaluate myself and disconnect from drinking to see if see if I was capable of doing that. Because mostly I never had like that wake up in the morning, like unless I was on a trip or a vacation with someone. Like I didn't wake up like then you do like the Bloody Marys in the morning and lunch in a glass and all that good stuff. But I never. I was more of a binge drinker, I'd say, to excess, and always a good time. And hey, anything we can light on fire, any shots. I'm the shot guy. Like I'm that. Like let's and let's go till 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
Couple days straight if need be. Whatever's on the table. But in 2016, that was when I took my step back, and I needed to reevaluate myself. So I was doing a self audit. I had come to the end of the road with my employer of 20 years. I'd come to the end of the road in my relationship of 15 years, and I had moved out of my house. I was sleeping on my friend's couch. I was starting a business at the same time, and a whole life trajectory change, right? And so I needed to know if I could not drink, and it turned out I was able to set goals for myself and achieve all those things and focus on my wellness and kind of bring things back. I mean, that was me also after years of watching my brothers. My oldest brother ultimately ended up in a drunk driving accident. A death resulted in that, and he went off to prison at a very young age, just after having 2 babies. He had 2 kids with his wife, and then shortly after that, off to prison. Alcohol pretty much controlled his life from the time he was, like I said, 12 years old. So my other brother passed away of an overdose while he was in prison. So, I watched that happen, and then I kind of continued down my own destructive path for a while, just not knowing how to manage dealing with those things. And I guess I wasn't addressing those things. It's weird because when you're in the moment, you think you've dealt with certain things. Alcohol is very tricky.
It's very tricky, and you don't understand. You think that, and the title of the book is Lying Drunk because lying is all you do, even when it's not alcohol related. Did you take the last piece of pizza? No. When
Right.
you have like pizza crumbs coming off your chin, and
Right.
yeah, I remember, and I just thought I was smarter than everybody else, and then I was just getting away with it. One time, my ex-wife and our kids, it was probably early December, and they decided, I don't know where I was, but it was a Saturday afternoon, and they decided they were going to start decorating the house, and they got out one of the big Christmas tubs, and they opened it up, and there are 3 empty bottles of vodka. And what do you do? What could she do?
Right.
And I, of course, had no memory of putting them in there, but it was a matter of I'm going to hide this and I'll take care of it later. And 8 months later, someone opened the tub, and that happened all the time. I grew up. My mom had me when she was 20, so we still lived with my grandparents. And I stayed with my grandparents till I was 12. And my grandfather was an alcoholic. So, I grew up watching him kind of, stumble in at night. And I would have friends over. And I remember one day he hit the fence with his truck, and he pushed the whole fence in. And we were on the other side of the fence. And I'm sure they went home and told their parents all about that.
Right.
And once I got a little bit older, I said, "Oh, I'm never going to do this." And I did. I did it all, and I did it all times 100. The fact that my daughters still talk to me is pretty amazing. I tried to diffuse that with honesty and apologies, of course. And I used to promise I would never do it again, which I can't really do anymore because you only have so many of those valid promises in you or in them to forgive. I didn't, when I started writing this book, I wasn't necessarily planning on writing a book. I just felt like I had all this stuff I had to get out.
Yeah.
And so I started writing because that's how I communicate. I'm not a great speaker. I don't like public speaking. In fact, when I used to public speak, I would always have a couple pops. Like part of my job when I was a music critic, I was on the radio all the time. And when I was a columnist, I would be invited to speak to groups and stuff like that. And I never did it without a couple of pops. Like I wasn't stumbling drunk, but I had just enough to feel confident
It
in.
gave you that liquid courage.
It
Yeah.
certainly did.
I
Yeah,
totally
that's
get that because much like you, I've always been a better writer than a speaker. Like since I was a kid, I could write great stories. I always, got good grades in those classes and writing classes. Never cared much for the speaking platforms, but I can totally relate to that. That's interesting that you say that.
yeah. So, my kids and I, and both my kids live with me. My 24-year-old daughter and my 17-year-old daughter both could live with their moms, but they choose to live with me, which is pretty miraculous as far as I'm concerned. Um, but I can't promise them anything anymore. All they want to see is me doing it. In fact, I take Antabuse, and the only reason I take Antabuse is, the medication that you take that theoretically, if you drink when you're on it, you will get violently ill.
Yeah.
Funny, I know a couple alcoholics who have still done so, and even though this is how bad it gets. Even though they're getting violently ill, they keep drinking
Yeah.
because that's how badly they need it.
Right.
I take Antabuse just at the behest of my daughters. And my 17-year-old, before she left this morning, she pointed out I haven't taken one in a while, and would I take one? Yeah, sure, I'll take one. I mean, I have no plans to drink
Yeah.
anytime soon, but that's how it always goes.
Of course.
When you get to this point, like I've been to rehab 10 or 11 times, I don't know how many times, but you get to the point where you don't plan on it, it just kind of happens. And that's what people don't get. Like the last time I fell off the wagon, my mom jumped all over me. She's usually really supportive, but she jumped all over me and kept saying, why are you doing this? I don't know.
Right.
I don't, it's still, I can be sober for 2.5 years, and one day I'll wake up and the compulsion will be so difficult to avoid. It's magnetic. And you feel like once you get going and you have a couple drinks, within 2 days you're back to your worst. No matter how many years you're sober, you're back to your worst, and you feel like you can't. It's like not having oxygen, which is a weird analogy. People always kind of look at me when I say that, but when I was at my worst, I felt like I had to get liquor in my body and everything would relax. Like I have asthma, and I've had bad asthma attacks when I was a kid, and it almost feels the same way. Like you can't get air in your lungs unless you get a drink in you. It's weird.
I grew up with, well, in my 20s, and as I became an adult, a lot of my friendship circle, we spent time with their parents, and their parents were all day drinkers, like functioning alcoholics, where they woke up in the morning and cracked a beer for breakfast. And then we would all go camping, everyone would go camping together, and they would drink, but they didn't behave like we did, all wild and crazy, but like they drank all day and night,
Like
every day.
maintenance.
Yeah.
And some
And
people can't socialize without it. They can't be
right.
around other people without it.
and
And
they've passed away, like all of their organs broke down, you know what I mean, like those folks have since passed away, and that was obviously why they had so many health issues that came up from that lifestyle. But there's a lot that I know, having known those folks, there's a lot that they were carrying with them, a lot of pain and hurt from unresolved things in their past that I know just stayed with them,
Yeah.
and that's a piece of the puzzle too. Just not healing, and alcohol is an interesting way to mask, your feelings and trick you. Like you said, it's very tricky, and trick you into thinking that you've put that to bed, or you're not, it's not weighing on you.
Yeah, all that goes away. It all goes away. And when you make that, when you turn that corner from it being a social thing, being a fun thing, to it being necessary for you to function, like I can tell you around 2016, 2015, unless I had a drink in the morning, I couldn't work. I would just be a disaster. So, and in 2017, um, everything exploded all at once. I split up with my second wife. I say I lost my job, but I actually quit my job, because I was being unreasonable and I didn't want to do something, and I figured I just had it. So, and the day I quit my job, my dog died that afternoon,
Oh,
literally. I mean, um, so I was out of my house and I'd moved back in with my parents, and I was there for a couple years. And those 2 years, and I write about those years in the book extensively, because it was a absolute nightmare. I was in and out of rehab. I was in the emergency room. I honestly don't know how many times. My 50th birthday, my mom came outside, and this poor woman is in her 70s, and she doesn't know what to do with me. And around midnight on my 50th birthday, she comes outside and she finds me passed out in a car. I'm assuming it was her car, or I don't know. I still don't know. But she somehow loaded me in her car and got me to the hospital. And my blood alcohol was 0.56, which, about zero point 0.3 is when they start talking about you dying.
yeah.
It was an insane couple years. And my kids, my older daughter had to go live with her mother, and her mother moved her 3 times in high school. So I completely fucked up her high school plan.
Yeah.
Uh, she missed 2 years of high school because of me. So yeah, there's a lot to unravel, and we're still unraveling it years later.
But that's amazing that you guys are together and there's another chance to be had here with that relationship. I think that's awesome. I think you referenced that your father was an alcoholic, and
My grandfather.
your grandfather, okay, you saw it. So my grandfather was also an alcoholic, my mother's father. And she grew up with that. So I did not grow up in a house with parents that drank. They didn't. Like, we went to church, very regimented. They worked. They were great role models in every sense of the word. But my mother did not have that growing up. Her father was passed out in the front yard in front of her girlfriends. His face was in his plate of dinner, right in the soup. Like, they would have to pull his face out of the soup like that. Like, it was, my dad tells me the story, like, oh, because my dad was always trying to help my mom repair that relationship with her father, after they were young parents. They had my brothers when they were 17 years old, so they
No.
were kicked out of the house, and like it was sink or swim. And my parents really took to it, and like they made it work. They're still together. They're in their early 70s now, and they've been together since they were 17 years old. And
Wow.
yeah, and
Have you had them on the podcast
I have
talking about?
not, but they would be interesting. I would like to have them on. They've got good stories, but
Yeah.
I hope they just don't tell the stories about me. They've got a ton. They've got a ton of ammo. But But my mom, it's interesting because I think as kids, if you grow up with that environment, you'll go one way or the other. Either you'll mirror that and carry that through, because he was like a severe alcoholic, and she just didn't. She didn't drink. She went the complete opposite way.
Yeah.
She lived with him because her parents were divorced, and my grandmother remarried to the man I knew as my grandfather. I barely really knew my mother's father. I knew him a little bit when I was a very little boy. I have memories of him, but I knew the other grandfather as my main grandfather. So he was present, but she chose to live with him because the rules were flexed. Like, her mother was more strict, and my other grandfather was a Detroit police officer. Her new husband was a
Oh,
Detroit police officer. So she wasn't living with those folks. She was living with her dad, so because it was more lenient, but that was where she witnessed all of his behavior, coming home drunk, and it was just a nightmare all the time for her. So obviously she got pregnant as a teenager, and then her and my father started their life together, and that relationship, while she tried to repair it, it became irreparable. So, when he passed away, she did not go to his bedside when he asked to see her. It was to that level. So, that's how that turned out for them. But it wasn't because she didn't try.
yeah.
She gave it a fair go. But I think that's beautiful for you and your daughters to have a healthy start and a new life together. That's
We're
beautiful.
we're trying.
Yeah.
And going back to what you said about kids going one way or the other, my 17-year-old has definitely gone the other way, meaning the right way. She gets straight A's. We are waiting to hear from Berkeley as to whether she got in.
Wow.
She's drank once in high school. She didn't like it, thank God. And she only started going to parties just the last few months because she's on the downslope to graduation now. But I'm pretty sure I went to high school so I should go to parties, so I could go to parties
That was
because
me.
I was going, the first month of high school. We were trying to go to high school parties in eighth grade because that's just what we did. Like, it wasn't, and that was probably mostly my friend group, but it was also the '80s, and I just remember things were different in the '80s. I mean, I had a stepfather who was an alcoholic. He wasn't the day drinking type like me, but nobody batted an eye when he would buy everybody beer and have them over at our house and would drink with us. And
Yeah.
then the funny thing was, he would collect everyone's keys because he was being responsible, and then he would get in his van, and he was as drunk as all the kids, but he drove them home.
Right.
It's like, what?
But in his head, he's a seasoned drinker, right? Like, he's a
Yeah.
professional. Yeah,
And that's where alcohol makes us lie to ourselves. Alcohol
exactly.
obscures the truth.
I was much
Um,
like you in high school too. I mean, I drank in high school, and ultimately, I was not allowed back. I had to go to the school for bad boys, so I got
oh,
kicked out of
really?
school. Yeah, after showing up drunk
Oh, I did
one
that.
morning.
I got suspended for doing that.
Yeah, I
I
got
just
suspended for
barely,
that. Yes, I
I
used to
just
park.
barely avoided the alternative school.
Yeah, I had to go to the
Um,
alternative. So we
Yeah.
had, I had, what happened? I used to park my car in the teacher's parking lot because I didn't want to pay. I didn't want to pay for the parking sticker. It was like $90. I was like, for this parking sticker, I was like,
Really? In high
yeah, I was like,
school?
go yourself. Teacher's parking lot for free. And then I would smoke my cigs in the teacher's lounge, so because it had a bathroom with a lock on it, so I'd go in there and smoke. This is how I was like. That's how I carried on. I'm much more clean cut these days.
Well, I was in high school in the '80s. We had a smoking section. Like, I tell my kids this, and they're absolutely aghast. but we had a section sort of apart from everybody else outside where kids went to smoke. And, you know, it's a whole nother, it's a better world now in that regard. But, you know, and that was also, again, in the 80s, and I was in the suburbs. So Coke was everywhere. I remember discovering it and thinking this is literally the greatest thing on planet Earth, and I'm going to
Yes.
do it every time I have the chance. You
I'm
know?
so glad we didn't grow up in the same 80,
Oh,
in the
we would have
same
been in
era.
the same group.
We would have been fast friends, Tony.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was just, but it was different. It was completely different. Like parents buying booze for their kids, and you know, I'd say that now, and my kids would think my stepdad was so horrible. But what they don't get is the context that that was happening all over the place.
Totally.
You know, that was at the beginning of Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, but that was still a time when drunk driving was just a slap on the wrist. You know, even by the time you get to your third or fourth offense, I don't know that you were going to jail.
I mean, it was really just a way of life around that time. It truly was. I mean, that was like, especially like I grew up in the suburbs like you did. And you know what? We had field parties. There was nowhere to
Oh yeah,
go. There was nowhere to go. There was nothing to do. I mean, that's why everyone drank. That's why drugs were available. You know what I mean? Luckily for me, it was nothing on the hard side of things. You know, it was more just dabbling like what we're talking about now. And it definitely, you know, took its toll eventually. But, you know, as far as environment goes, it's like that's, you know, you are who the company you keep. You know what I mean? And that's what's around.
yeah, yeah. And you know, by the time the '90s rolled around, I was in a band, and those were back in the days when bands there was no internet, so bands had to move to LA where the record companies were. And my band did well up here in the San Francisco scene. We moved to Hollywood. I was down there for 3 years. We did get a record deal, and it fell apart. But you know that's a whole. And it was funny because I stopped doing drugs when I moved to Hollywood because I didn't have a dealer anymore, and suddenly I was out of mom's house and I was working every day and I had to pay bills. I was still drinking every night because that was our job. When we weren't rehearsing, we were out on Sunset handing out flyers. That's the way you promoted yourselves back then. Or you went to other people's shows and talked about your band. And I mean, it was the greatest, probably the greatest 3 years of my life. I had so much fun and I have so many stories. But, you know, when you get to that point, that's when people are dying from heroin. The singer of my band eventually, well, he died from some unrelated things, but he got into that kind of scene later. And we knew guys, I had friends who were doing heroin and nobody knew, and then they just die.
Isn't that interesting? Because I had the same thing happen. Like the people around me that I was partying with all the time, I had no idea were into harder stuff than I was into.
Yeah,
And no one really ever presented that stuff to me. So like I was very lucky in that respect that it was around me and I didn't even know it. It just never made its way to me. Like, thank the Lord.
yeah,
And
I was
because
scared of it. I was
yeah.
scared of heroin because I knew it killed people. Funny enough, then I'm drinking myself to death. But yeah, it was scary, and there was definitely, and that those were back in the days. If you know think about the '90s, where heroin was almost kind of chic
Right.
for a while.
Yeah.
There were a lot of models I remember who were doing it, and that's I think where the term heroin chic came from. But drinking was like just what we did every night. I mean, there you wouldn't we wouldn't go out till 9:30 or 10 because you know no good bands go on before 10 o'clock
Right.
back then. But what we would do is we'd go to the liquor store at 8 and we'd start drinking at home and we'd watch Cops or something and get fired up to go out. Yeah, it was probably every outside of rehearsals, probably every night of the week we were drinking.
It was like that for me working in the mental health field. I started working in the mental health field at a young age, 18 years old,
Oh,
and I had a great group of mentors, right? So from the time I started in, but I always had the party in me, but so did my mentors, but they were professionals, you know what I'm saying? So it was like when you got together to debrief or get any kind of mentorship, you went to the bar to get it because that's where everyone was. They're at the watering hole, and they're
yeah.
professionals. They're psychologists and they're doctors and they're social workers and all these people that were above me. You know, as I'm just in my late teens, getting into my 20s, and then as my career evolved, it was the same thing. Everyone, it was that was what the professionals do, so that was kind of what was role modeled to me, and not only from my teens with my peers. Then you get into the professional life, it just looks different. It's just in a suit and a tie, it's just in better clothes and presented
It's
differently.
funny because I see so many mental health professionals in AA meetings,
Yeah,
like tons of them, which, from the outside, that makes perfect sense. You have to listen to people's agony all day,
yeah,
and you're going to look for a quick release, right?
yes,
But then there's the flip side is that if you're a mental health professional, you're supposed to know about these things, these
right,
bumps in the road, and you're supposed to be aware. Like the child of an alcoholic,
yeah,
think they would never become an alcoholic because they know the stories,
yeah,
but yet some of us do, and we can't. One thing I was thinking about this earlier when you were talking about the family stuff. I remember being 12 years old, and my whole family were drinkers. And I remember having a glass of champagne and something, I'm not sure why, I am sure why this happened. I started acting drunk because I knew it would get me attention.
right,
And my family started laughing at me. And the more it was like Christmas. And
yeah,
the more they laughed, the more I'm like, oh, I'm getting attention. I'm doing something fun. And they're watching me. And I wasn't drunk. I mean, I think I had a glass of champagne or wine or something, but it was weird, and it didn't seem strange at all. And maybe it wasn't in 1979, but they were almost encouraging me, like,
yeah.
"Oh, look at him. He's one of us now."
Yeah.
You know, like, look how
Yes.
cute he
That's
is.
how it was really working with the group of professionals that I was working with, because they liked it. While they didn't behave like I did because I was younger, I could get away with it. It would be a bad look for them, but they definitely like having the wild card around. I picked up on that. You know what I mean? Then I started, once I had started like through that, got to that 2016 era. It was kind of me paying attention to, why am I sitting at certain people's tables? Why do you have me around? Why do you want me around? I was evaluating, I was looking at that because I started seeing other people kind of unravel, and I'm like, gosh, people kind of egg it on. It's almost like, wow, and they're mental health professionals. Like everyone's supposed to be, we should really be like supporting each other. And, you can't really intervene in someone's life if you see, only you can make that call for yourself. Only you can save yourself. No one's going to save you. It's true,
That's the biggest thing, especially with someone like me. Everybody says, "Oh, I'm stubborn." I'm really like I remember telling my sponsor once that you just got to understand, I really don't like being told what to do. And he looked at me like, "What the f? Then how am I gonna even do this with you?"
Well, it's like oppositional defiance disorder. It's like, tell me no, and I'm going to go harder. So,
That's exactly what I used to do. And it was I mean, by the time I was a senior in high school, this persona had just become, I mean, I was voted class clown. And the reason I'd done that was because I loved the attention. And the more I drank, the looser I was, the more stupid shit I did. I could write an
right.
entire book on just the stupid shit. Um, but it was who I was, and it just continued, and it continued for decades, even after I had my kids, and I had a career, and I became the guy in my 40s who was showing up to Christmas parties, acting like an idiot, Now, all my friends, when we would go on road trip, just guy road trips, then we'd all revert to being 25 and stupid. But
Right.
I was doing it all the time. It was almost
Yeah.
like I didn't know, like, I didn't play golf like my friends. All my friends graduated from college and got jobs and made money. Well, I became a journalist, which, as you may or may not know, the the guy manning the fry vat at Burger King probably made more money than I did. So I was, even among my friend group, as we grew older, we went different directions. And then I panic. And I would revert to being drunk idiot. And like I said, wives really liked that. Boy, they were into me throwing food at their husbands and acting. And I would take my own wife, and she on the way home she would just be like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, you don't get it. They get it." Well,
Right.
they don't get it, and
You're
pretty
like
soon
I know what you're saying because it's like explaining it to someone is like I'm just having a good time, like
right,
relax,
right.
right?
This
Like you're
is
taking it too
me.
seriously, right?
They wouldn't invite me if they didn't want me here. But then
Exactly.
they stopped inviting me. So,
Right. But I get it too because like nobody alcohol is so tricky because it's like you go to the bar or you go to these parties or whatever and everyone's drinking. Well, some people don't have the throttle. So for me, it's like I didn't have any desire to sit around and just have a sophisticated cocktail. Like that wasn't me. That wasn't my style. I'm like, let's get shots, let's rally up, and let's turn up the music. And then the next thing you know, old Jed's a millionaire. I'm buying shots for everybody. Everyone's shirts are coming off, and everyone's getting a kiss. I'm that one, and let's light the shots on fire. Anything we can
yeah,
get 151 on, let's light that baby
yeah,
up. You know what
yeah.
I mean? And people like, and then you're sitting with other people in the bar that are just like, "Whoa, what's this guy all about?" And it's like you're at a bar.
And you know what? And if you keep that behavior up, when you get to the age where the real you matters, it matters to the opposite sex, it matters to anybody who's going to hire you, it matters to the new friends that you make. If you're still drinking like a 25-year-old idiot, that's completely covered up. Like who you are emotionally, who you are intellectually. Although I went through a phase in my early 20s where not only did I decide I was the smartest guy in the room, but I was also going to be the meanest guy in the room. And I would purposely try to make someone cry with my soaring intellect.
Oh wow.
And yeah, it was terrible. And I wish I could find some of those people to apologize to
Yeah.
because it was awful. It all it showed was that I was being a bully. And of course, if anybody tried to bully me, oh, I was a victim. It was, oh, don't do that to me. But it's just the different personalities that come out after a while. You don't even know who's you and who's not until you sober up for a couple of years.
What happened for me was I never had like the kind of I was always really consistent as just a hoot and a half. I was always like, let's have a good time, unless you're looped into some kind of drama in an argument or whatever, and then of course you're involved. But as far as like kind of getting to know myself emotionally, that was that whole 2016 period where I was like doing some spiritual work and I needed to get to know myself. Well, it turned out like I'm an entrepreneur and I had all these gifts and talents that I kind of knew that I had as a child. It just got away from me because that wasn't the environment I wasn't like necessarily set up for success with my peers, I would say. Not that my parents didn't like give all of us boys the same opportunities. I had great parents. We had great opportunities. Everything was afforded to us. But like I said, when you grow up rural, like in the suburbs in the 80s and 90s, like not everything is available to you. You don't have all these resources to go, explore your gifts and your talents. So once you find your way to alcohol, that's what everyone's doing. All the peers are doing when you're a teenager. All that other stuff, you forget about all that other stuff because the party is the main priority. It's like, oh, let's have a good time. I mean, that was the priority. And then you look at it, if you look at that, like going from high school, like, yeah, it's a good time. Then you go right into college. I knew so many friends that, you know, their parents were paying for them to go to college and they were coming back home like they were flunking out of school because the party continues right to college,
Yeah.
and it's just a waste
Yeah.
of dough, right?
Yeah.
I chose not to do that because I knew I'd piss that away. I knew myself well enough to know like the party was still in me heavily, so like I focused on working while I still was able to have a good time, and then I went to school later. when
So did I.
when
And that's
when I
smart. That's really smart of you. That's a maturity thing that I didn't have. I just couldn't. All my friends went to community college, so I just followed them. And when you're 18 or 19 and you go to community college with your buddies, it's just continuation high school. And I eventually just stopped going because I was playing music and partying and doing drugs. And I didn't go to college until I came back from LA when I was 26 and got lucky, took a journalism class, and I've always loved to write. And I absolutely fell in love with journalism, and it became my entire life. Now, I
yeah
was still in my 20s, and my heroes were people like Hunter S. Thompson and Charles Bukowski, these amazing writers who, oh, by the way, were drunk the entire time they were writing.
yeah
So I was going to be drunk too, and
right
I was a lot of the time.
yeah
But I fell in love with journalism, thank God. And really, it was the one thing I really poured my life into for the first 5 or 10 years because I just loved it. And the alcohol was still there, but it was like, not even every night, which sounds funny saying, but it's like that's a big concession. Oh, I wasn't drunk every night, but I wouldn't start drinking until 7 or 8 or whatever.
I think without those experiences, though, it can't shape you into who you are today without having had those experiences. And I often reflect. I go deep and I reflect on all of the things I've done, all the things I've said, everywhere I've been, and I think that everything, our plan is laid out, right? And we just have to walk that path. And part of our path was going through those experiences.
Yeah.
And I when I was doing the deep work in there, it's interesting to discover yourself after, like after you kind of get away from that lifestyle and start and you dry out, you know what I mean? And then I had the blessing of being by myself. So like I didn't have any, when I went through that experience for myself to understand myself better, I didn't even have any pets at that time. I was completely alone, and I was able to do deep work. I spent a lot of time in the woods. I spent a lot of time writing. I spent a lot of time listening to books, reading books. Like I did all of those things. I went to just various churches. I did a lot of things. I did a lot of volunteer work. It was a very spiritual experience for me, and it was very enlightening to see like who I truly was under all of that.
Yeah.
Under that good time. There's a good man under there.
Yeah, underneath all the emotional scabs and
Yeah.
everything that you've built up, yeah, I don't even feel like, I'm a little bit closer to the person I'm supposed to be. I've had some speed bumps the last couple of years, and when I have speed bumps now, meaning when I fall off the wagon, I disappear for a week. And my job, I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but actually I've done it where I've worked my job during the day I've managed to get through it, but on weekends and nobody hears from me. And physically, it gets bad now. Like it's got to the point now where there's this whole new set of challenges. It's not just like being hungover or hiding your empties
Yeah.
or being out drunk, trying to not act drunk. But my brain somehow has gone into this new alcoholic dimension where I hear things, and I hear things through the wall, and I have hallucinations, and it's really, I think it's my brain really telling me, like it's almost trying to scare me, and it is scary now. It might be to the point where I know I just can't do it anymore because not only is it the shit show it used to be, but now there's a whole new level of terror with it.
Yeah.
And I got my two kids here,
Yeah.
and it scares the shit out of them.
I got really fascinated with I love that you brought that up actually because I remember I would be hungover as fall, just laying in bed watching this man on PBS, Dr. Daniel Amen, and he wrote a book called Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, and he would do these brain scans. I want to say it aired on PBS, but I remember just being hungover and I would just be fascinated with this while I'm watching it. And he would have the brain scans of a drinker, of a pot smoker, of a heroin, or a drug addict, like whatever, name it. And he would do these brain scans, and I have the book, I have the flashcards, I read the book, and there's all kinds of wonderful information. You should follow him on Instagram. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, Dr. Daniel Amen.
I'll write that
He's
down.
wonderful. I ran into him at the biohacking conference one year. He was there. Was it just this past year? He's got a great book, and he's got a lot of information on how to heal your brain. After overcoming alcohol. There's a lot of things that book steered me to. Juicing vegetables and fruits and brain food is wonderful for a lot of the paralysis that you describe.
Yeah, yeah. I have found, I'm not much of an AA guy. I do go to meetings. I've gone to probably hundreds, if not thousands, of meetings because AA was always good for me transitioning from either rehab to real life or a big binge to real life or whatever. But I found for me, getting up in the morning and getting to the gym and just doing something makes 100% difference. If I don't do that, my brain is mush by late afternoon. I do take the brain stuff. I was already kind of into creatine anyway, but all these studies that are coming out now that saying creatine is the best thing for your brain
Yeah.
really encourages me. And I have a big tub of it I get into every morning.
Yes.
Um,
We're similar because for me, like my process too, it was working out. Really, like it was during that whole 2016 thing where I was writing and reading and all of those things. I was walking also. So like I would go to this park and it had an 8 mile loop, and I would walk that 8 mile loop, and that I would walk 8 miles a day, and I would work out twice a day,
wow.
just because I was also like experiencing some suicidal ideation. I was trying to figure out if I was experiencing suicidal ideation. I didn't know what my purpose was. I didn't know what my place was in the world at that time, and I was stripping all that other stuff away. So I was
Yeah.
trying to understand purpose, and so I would walk that 8 mile loop, but it was just like literally that cliche saying, like one step at a time. Truly, like one step at a time, one day at a time. That's real. Like
Yeah.
I would go do that, and then that's to this day my protocol is I get up, I go to the gym, and sometimes it's not working. It's not working out and lifting a bunch of weights. It's just walking on the treadmill.
Yeah. And you're also adding with subtraction because what you're not doing, and this is the worst thing on the planet for me, is you're not isolating. Like I worked at a job for 5 years Funny enough, that started during the pandemic and ended last summer, where there was no office. So everybody worked from home. So I was eating, sleeping, and working in the same room all day for 5 years. And I would have to, it's not, it's funny because when you're younger, you always want out. And just the act of going out is not a thing in and of itself. But now it is, and it has to be. Because if you isolate, you're at home with those thoughts in your brain. And your brain is, the greatest thing, the greatest tool that you have, but it's also your greatest adversary, and especially for me because I am just in my head. That's why I don't public speak typically, because my head starts going, and
Yeah.
while my head's going, what I'm worrying about is losing my train of thought. It's like the old, we have nothing to fear but fear itself.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not afraid of anything but becoming afraid in the middle of a sentence while I'm talking to a group. And I try to devise, like, off ramps and how do I get out of this? And I'll even write stuff down and like put it in front of me. But, and usually it doesn't happen. Usually it's just me, being a f***ing weirdo.
Well, what you describe is me all day. So, like, I'll forget what I'm saying while I'm
You
saying
write
it.
down prompts like do you write down prompts like, okay, if I lose my train of thought, I can go here.
Normally, I have a clipboard with me when I podcast, and I have bullet points because
Yeah.
sometimes that just happens to me, and I'm just like, son of a. What was I even talking about? And then I'll just start circling the airport, and then I'm like, all right, land the plane, and or we'll come back to that. We'll revisit that topic
Yeah.
once I figure that out. But
Yeah.
I think that's more common for most people that I know than we think. Most people I get in a conversation with, if they come to my studio, I have a conference room and a whiteboard and all that. And so most people I know have ADD, ADHD, or whatever they say. And so we get on the whiteboard and we write, like, because one of us, you got something to say and you don't want to forget, like, you got to write it down, like, okay, so my guy's talking, so I don't want to interrupt them, so let me write this down, we'll get back to this, you know what I mean? It's just a process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
ADHD does not help. When I was a kid, they didn't call it that. They called it hyperactivity.
Yeah.
And the doctor told my mom and grandma that I had it, and they wanted to medicate me. And they were not, nobody was medicated. No, nobody medicated their kids back then, right? And suddenly, when I stopped drinking, it came back. And I would be, I would be trying to do one thing. I could do no more like long-term projects, like where you work for a couple weeks on a big story. I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't even sit still for 10 minutes at a time. So I got back into meditating and still didn't do a whole lot. And my doctor told me, funny enough, that I'd been drinking for so long. I'd been drinking since childhood. He suspected that the drinking suppressed my ADHD, and now that I wasn't drinking, it was back. So I finally got on medication last year, and it's great.
Amazing.
I can focus. Of course, I have energy, and there's always that part of me that used to really love doing meth. I graduated from coke to meth when I was about 18 and did that for a few years. And it was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, it was too much fun, but I'm focused and I can get things done now. And it's a process. I'm still learning how to be on that certain medication and how to deal with it. But it's really, really helpful. It's funny being diagnosed with ADHD at age 58, but
It is what it is. And you know what I love about you and what I love about the book is you have such a great sense of humor and a great outlook on everything. And you're just full of humility. And I think that I really respect you and your journey and that you are willing to share in a book like that. I told you before we started recording, I think I co-authored a book, just one chapter in a campaign with 14 other people. There's 15 people total in the book, and that was a lot for me to bring up. I touched on a lot in in one short chapter, and like to read your book and everything that you relive when you go through it. It's quite a process. And so I think you're amazing. And I think that it's a wonderful book. And I think that
Thank
you
you.
have a lot to offer on a public speaking platform, because I think that you're a great speaker. And I think that this has been an amazing podcast.
Great. I'll start booking speaking engagements, and you can come with me.
I will. I'll do it. We can remind each other what the other one's supposed to say.
Exactly. When one of us kind of just blanks out, the other one can take over. Well,
Yes, exactly. I love it. We'll be the sober Laurel and Hardy.
what would that make me, Laurel or Hardy? Anyway, no, I really appreciate that. It's just the honesty thing. There's so much lying in your life when you're an alcoholic that, and you're not keeping this from anyone. Everybody around you knows.
Yeah, right.
So, why not just be honest about it? I mean, and the stories, the reason AA people go to AA is because there's nobody else we can tell these stories to, because normal people freak out. Whereas you go to an AA meeting and you talk about how, it was after 2 a.m. and you needed a drink, so you went to 7-Eleven and you stole a bunch of shit, or you broke into the cabinet to get a bottle of something. And you just tell these horrific stories. You go to your neighbor's house and break into their garage to get a bottle. People would just look at you like, you are a criminal. Whereas you go to an AA meeting and everyone in the room is going, oh, I remember when, yeah, that happened to me too. You know?
I mean, you know what? Everyone has a story. I mean, everyone's a criminal. I swear. It's just the level of judgment from certain people is just, everyone's got skeletons in their closet. Most people are
Yeah.
just, some people are just more committed to hiding them.
Yep.
And I think that's all it comes down to. I've worked in the mental health field since I was 18 years old, and I've just had such a blessed life in the respect of working with the folks that I've worked with, both on the direct support side and on the professional side of things. And I've experienced my own struggles, and I've overcome some adversity myself, and I'm just a huge advocate for anybody that's willing to address and share their story on a platform that helps others and provide resources, really, because I love what you said about how you found your own way. Not AA isn't necessarily for everyone. Everyone has their own path. And people need customization to what sets them up for success the best. And only you
Yeah.
really know that, right? And so
Right.
it's important, I think. That's why I started my podcast, was to bring on people like yourself that can share another way. You know what I mean? Because there isn't just one way for everybody. Maybe someone's going to hear Tony's story, it resonates with them, and what you offer helps them, and they didn't even know it.
Yeah.
That was an option. So
And I'm still trying to figure it out.
yeah,
It's a work in progress till the day you die, I think. It
absolutely.
better be, because if you think you have all the answers, that's as bad as being a wake up drunk,
Yeah,
with the bottle
absolutely.
at 6 a.m. ready to go.
We don't. Every year it's like, during the year, like, there's these moments where you're like, all right, yeah, now we're cooking with grease. I've figured some shit out. And then, like, the end of the year comes and it's like, I don't know. It's
We're
all
like, what the was I so happy about? What was I thinking?
right.
Because that's just
Go back through my writings, and I'm like, oh yeah, I was on point that day, but everything went to shit now,
now.
so I've got to
Yeah,
start over again. It's like every year is a rebuild, but we do get a little wiser.
I hope so.
Yeah. I
God,
think
I
we
hope
do.
so.
I think we do. I think we get better. I think in our youth we're so afraid that we're going to get old. folks that are older than us when we're young, and that's like intimidating, like, oh, I'm never gonna be like that, or what have you. And then we go on with more life experience, and then it happens, you're in it, right? And then you reflect, and then I think, like, I've embraced it. So like I actually look forward to aging. And so because with it comes the wisdom, and things just get better if you're focused on betterment. And that's, you know what I mean? Like once you've shifted towards feeling better, like just as a person, and committing to wellness, and your new normal, it's
Mhm.
like there's nothing better than looking forward to the future at that point. So
That's a great thing about this, our generation, is that it wasn't a case like our parents and grandparents when they hit a certain age and it's like, okay, we've arrived. This is how we dress. This is the haircut that we have. This is how we behave because we're middle aged or old or whatever. Whereas our generation, it's just not that cut and dried. I still feel like I am the person I was when I was 25 in a lot of ways. Obviously, I've improved in a lot of ways, but that's what I like about this generation. I think it has something to do with growing up in culture that is still acceptable. You'll find that a lot of the music we used to listen to, kids listen to now. Um, you find that bands that we used to listen to are still touring now, and it's okay for people our age to go to rock shows where, our grandparents would never have done anything like that.
right.
So
I
the
agree with what
culture,
you say. I
yeah, the
have
culture
friends
says it's
well into,
okay.
yeah, my friends are, some of my friends are well into their 60s, and I see the youth in them. So I don't see that. Like talking to you, I see the young man in you. I see the young spirit, and I think that, that's inspiring, and it's empowering to other people that are can, would be willing to be open to letting that side of themselves out.
Yeah, I last night I went and I played music with three of my buddies. All three I went to high school with, two of whom I've been in bands with for 40 years and 30 years, and it was the most natural thing in the world, and it felt great. And that's just part of life now. You can do that now, and you should do that now if that's still you.
Yeah, I love talking to my friend Greg. Greg is 67, and he's just full of youth and energy. And he authored a book. Also, I'll have to send you a copy. He's got a book called "I Can Make Caffeine Nervous." He doesn't drink any caffeine, but he's got so much energy that he named the book "I
Oh
Can
my
Make Caffeine
God.
Nervous." He's got a great book, and like I said, he's 67 years old. We talk regularly, and he's just such an inspiration to me. We met on a plane actually, and just became friends. And he's just this amazing man, and he's so full of youth and energy, and just and vitality, and he doesn't see himself like I don't see him as a 67-year-old man like other youth would see a 67-year-old person. Like when I talk with him, it's who is coming out of him when you're engaging in that experience with a human. It's just like talking to you. It's like reliving the things. Like there's probably an age gap between us, but I would never know because we sound so similar and how we came up. So
Yeah. What
yeah.
year were you born? 70.
77.
Okay, so you're 10 years younger than me. But
Yeah, and I
it's who
wouldn't I
cares?
wouldn't know. You know what I mean? It's just like catching up with an old friend I went to high
Yeah,
school with. So
yeah,
that's how that
totally.
feels.
Totally. Yeah, you're not an age. People used to be an age, and it's not that way anymore. And you know, g- grandmas and grandpas are going to shows, and I mean that's my most obvious example because I was part of that world for so long. But bands are still touring in their flippin' 70s. Some are in their 80s. So why shouldn't their fans be the same age? Now, the shows have to start earlier, of course. They
Right.
have to
Thank
start
God.
at 7 or 8, thank God. But that doesn't mean you don't go. You still go
What,
because
Tony, what time do you get up in the morning now?
well, so I was because my daughter is one of those kids that can't get enough school, so she actually was taking an extra class, a zero period class. So I was getting up at 6:30 to take her to school, but she got her driver's license and a car in December.
Cool.
So I'm literally sleeping in until 8:30 or 9.
Oh, lucky. Yeah.
I'm freelancing, so I'm kind of on my own schedule. But just, and I'm sure I'm going to go back to waking up at 7 or 7:30. But I'm really enjoying not having to like walk out of the house like a zombie, get in my car, fight traffic to get her to school, then come home.
Yeah, yeah. I found my way into getting up very early and going to bed very early. So now it's just a different normal for me.
Yeah, it's just temporary for me. I'm sure I'm going to go back to being in bed by 10 and up by 7 because that's I was getting to the gym at 6 last year and then I'd come back and take her to school and those were easily my most productive days. Uh, and I'm trying to adjust my sleep cycle now that I've
Well, what's
sort of
cool
enjoyed.
as we get older, as we go on with more life experience, like I like to get done like before everything gets hectic. So like if you, I like to be at the store when it opens at like
Yes, so do I.
6
So do I.
a.m.
Because I don't want to deal with crowd. I got older and suddenly I notice crowds and I don't want to be around crowds. I don't have to. Like, I have friends who still go to festivals. I will not. I would rather eat my own foot than go to a music festival now. Not that they're not great, but I'm not drinking.
Right.
I'm not acting like an idiot with my friends. I'm not running around. I don't have necessarily the energy to do that. It's just a lot of people and it's a little claustrophobic. And,
I'm with you.
I'll go to shows where I can listen to the band,
Yeah,
which was
exactly.
always like third or fourth on the list. But now it's like, hey, I'd like to hear the band. Will you shut the up? Like you tell
Exactly.
people, like, stop talking. I want to hear.
Exactly. Now it's a whole new world, right? Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's it's fun though, but I definitely noticed all those shifts where it's like you definitely feel the youth in you, but at the same time there's the shift of like the your priorities, right? Like you know how to there's we still have the youth in us, but it's mature youth.
Yeah.
Youth with
Yeah.
a touch of maturity.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it's great.
Yeah. Now, Tony, I noticed on the back of your book you have your social media handles. Do you want to shout those out?
It's funny. I put on Substack. I put something I shouldn't have put because I didn't understand Substack at the time. If you go to Substack and because that's where I'm writing, I'm trying to write what used to be columns in the newspaper. I'm trying to write those once or twice a week, and that's the thing I push out most. But I am on Substack, Tony Baloney 666. I am on. I have and I didn't put it on here. I have a dedicated Facebook page for my writing. So I guess it's Tony the Writer on Facebook. I put Blue Sky on here. I'm not really on Blue Sky that much. Instagram, It's taken me literally 3 or 4 years to understand how Instagram works, but I do sort of. And I just started putting TikTok videos on a few weeks ago after my kids were just beating me to death. Like, you really you want to push this book and you're not on TikTok?
Yeah.
So I am now.
That's awesome. I could see you. They call them the sizzle reels, the shorts and the sizzle
Yeah,
reels.
yeah,
I could. You got some good stuff. You've got some good material. You've got to make some good shorts and get yourself out there. I love it.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna do something like do book readings with a Darth Vader helmet on, or just whatever. I would love to get some different people who I know to people with a little bit of notoriety or celebrity to maybe read 30 seconds of the book or. whatever. You could do it if you
I
want.
would
You
do
want
it. I would totally do it.
to give me a
Yes.
TikTok, let me know.
Don't
Find
threaten me with a good time. I'm gonna do it. I actually,
do
you
it.
you got to come to Michigan and stay at. I got a. The studio has a house down the street from here where the guests stay. So we stash our guests that come
Oh,
to Michigan to do the podcast in person over there. It's fully furnished and everything. Everything in town is walkable. It's right here on Main Street. You got to come, and you got to come hang out in the studio. We got a professional vocal booth. We can record all your reels here.
sweet.
All you got to do is pay for your plane ticket, and I got you covered. You're welcome here anytime.
That would be, I have not, my big regret is that I haven't seen a lot of the United States. So 3 or 4 years ago, I got to DC for the first time in my life, and I'm a history freak. So I was there for work, and I worked for 3 or 4 days. Then I stayed an extra 4 days just so I could see DC. What I really needed was 2 or 3 weeks. I
Yeah.
just loved it. But that was the first time I've ever been to the East Coast. I've never been to New York City.
I've never been to New York City. It's on my bucket list. I want to go. I have not. I have a couple of friends that live out that way. I've got to make my way out there sometime.
Yeah. Well, I got to get a job, so I have money to travel.
Well,
So,
that's why we got to get you on the public speaking platform. We got to get that gig going.
you know what? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I'll take my bullet points, and when I lose my train of thought, I'll just pull something out of thin air.
We'll both start taking. We'll get a sponsorship from Ginkgo biloba. Maybe they can. maybe we could get. Maybe we could get some
Or even
money out of
better,
those folks.
creatine, because creatine is
Yes.
expensive. So
Yes.
you can get some of
I'm gonna.
that. Do a commercial where you lose your train of thought, and then you reach behind you and you pull out the creatine and you go,
Yes.
and you start talking.
A loving spoonful. We'll have to do. Yeah. We'll have to get some paid sponsorships on the podcast. You'll have to be my
Let's
new
talk about
co-host.
that. Let's talk
Yes.
about that.
Yeah. Tony, it's been so good getting to know you on the podcast. I love it.
Yeah, me too, Mike. I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, and I really mean it. Anytime you want to come to Michigan, you got a place to stay here, and we got your name on the director's chair here, so you are welcome anytime.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And this
All right.
is on Amazon, barnesandnoble.org or .com or whatever it is. And I am currently talking to a major publisher who approached me this week about maybe getting some distribution. So hopefully it'll be in stores by this time next year, or we'll see what happens.
That's amazing. I'm going to put some good vibes out for you, and I actually have. I've already gifted this book out. I bought a stack, and I've been gifting
Oh,
it
thank
out.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
of
you.
course. And
I
when you
appreciate it.
come here to the studio, because we're gonna make you some sizzle reels. You're gonna sign the copy for me, right?
Oh yeah. How far are you from Chicago?
3.5 hours, I want to say.
Because a big chunk of my family is from Chicago. My grandmother used to tell these awesome stories of after being in clubs and then going to the after hours joint and listening to Count Basie and like that. But my mom was born there, and my mom's turning 80 this year, and she would like to see it again. So I was thinking of that like a Midwest trip.
Yeah,
I'd send mom back early, and then I'd come to Michigan.
yeah. I used to cut school just to go to Chicago for the day. It's that
Yeah,
close.
yeah. That's what we used to do with Berkeley and San Francisco.
Yes, yeah. See, two of a kind, birds of a feather.
Yes, sir.
Yes. All right, guys. Tony Hicks, Lying Drunk. You can pick it up on Amazon, and don't forget to follow Tony on all of his handles. Thank you so much, Tony.
Cool. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. All right, that's a wrap.